Yo, what is happening, guys? How are you doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel. And today, to pretty much no one's surprise, Nintendo Switch Pro rumors are back in the news, and it's something we gotta talk about. So, the Nintendo Switch Pro. This thing is crazy. And living in a world where the Nintendo Switch Lite has already been confirmed, revealed, and now released out into the wild, I think it's fair to admit that the idea of a Nintendo Switch Pro definitely feels different than it did even 5 or 6 months ago, before we even knew that there was going to be a Switch Lite. For a long time, the ideas and the rumors about a Nintendo Switch Pro were also wrapped up in conversations about a Nintendo Switch Mini. There was so much back and forth with these two ideas. Nintendo is making a Switch Mini, they're making a Switch Pro, they're making both. Who even knows? It just was non-stop for probably a year and a half. I mean, heck, I will freely admit, I've probably made like 6 or 7 videos on this exact topic already over the past year, and here we are discussing it again. But, like I just said, the Switch Mini turned out to be real. After all the rumors and the leaks and all the conversations about it, the Mini was a real thing, of course, turning into the Switch Lite. And so, the Switch Pro is something that I think people have been even more passionately dedicated to wanting to believe, because I think that people find the concept of a more powerful and a more capable Switch much more interesting than the idea of a slimmed or stripped down Switch, a Mini, or a Switch Lite. And so, as soon as the Switch Lite was confirmed, a lot of people started to bring back the conversation and the concept of a Switch Pro, thinking, hey, if Nintendo's gonna make a Switch Mini and call it the Lite, then clearly they would also want to make a Switch Pro, right? Sony did it, Microsoft did it, why wouldn't Nintendo do the same thing? They've done it with the 3DS in the past, makes sense to do it with the Switch. And, you know, I can repeat a lot of the sentiments that I've said on this topic in the past, in that in saying that anything is always possible. I mean, the Switch Mini and the Switch Pro were always possible, even though I really wasn't believing them for a long time. It was always something that could happen. And so then the Switch Lite comes out, and now we think about the Switch Pro, and yeah, I still feel that yes, it does make sense. It is something that I could see Nintendo doing. Which brings us to this past week, where suddenly more substantial rumors about a Switch Pro has started to get out there. A lot of conversations, a lot of behind-the-scenes hubbub. You've probably seen plenty of other YouTubers already covering this topic and the kind of resurgence of the Switch Pro getting out there into the ethosphere. And it's interesting, it's fascinating, and it's exciting. I mean, I won't lie. I'm incredibly satisfied with the Switch the way it is. I didn't need no Switch Lite or Switch Mini. I do not even need a Switch Pro. I've got a PS4, an Xbox One, a Nintendo Switch, a capable laptop. I'm not missing out on any game experiences no matter what's happening. But even with my satisfaction with the current Switch, sure, a more capable Switch obviously has to be kind of appealing. I mean, I'm not a maniac. You add more power, more graphics, more memory, you know, more capabilities as far as the games and the visuals and the size and the AI. Yeah, I mean, that's always appealing no matter what. And taking my favorite current console and making it more capable, no matter how I feel about it in its current state, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. However, with this recent round of Switch Pro rumors comes a pretty interesting twist. There's really 2 parts to the twist. One is a lot of this rumor is kind of the genesis of this came from 4chan, which is like, come on, like the least reliable place in the world. Obviously, some people with real information do go to places like 4chan and Reddit and put that information out there. Yes, I know sometimes real things come from these places, but at the end of the day, it's 4chan, so whatever, who cares? You know, that being said, this person who apparently has some sort of history did go on to 4chan and said, hey, there's possibly a Switch Pro. I know some inside information from someone who works at Nintendo, and it's going to be like this. But also, part of this rumor from this person also has to do with a Switch 2, a successor console. And so things are getting really crazy here. We're already talking about the successor to the Nintendo Switch. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I don't yet believe anything as far as the Switch 2 is concerned. The Switch Pro, the new Nintendo Switch, an upgrade to this current model that's still ultimately a Switch that plays the same games, that feels more in the immediate future to me than a Switch 2 or a successor. And this obviously, you know, factors into the fact that I still do believe a Switch 2 or a successor console is sooner on the horizon than I think most other people do. I think a lot of people want to think that Nintendo's going to move to next-gen hardware, you know, maybe in another 5 years or so. I think it's probably another 3 years, 2 or 3 years. I think we're going to be moving on from the Switch. That's my personal theory. That being said, the reason I'm not believing these current rumors about the Switch 2 for the most part is because I still think it's too early right now to be talking about it. The Switch Pro, even though I don't need it, does feel more real. And so there's an Inverse article that kind of seems to be one of the first places kind of reporting on what's happening here with these rumors. I'll flash a couple of images here. I'm not going to read this or go over the fine details of this person and the 4chan rumor, other than to talk about the big picture stuff. But, you know, he posted this, he or she, I should say, posted this on 4chan. And then also when discussing the concept of a Switch 2, had this kind of list of specs. I mean, come on, are specs really going to get out there this early in the game? I'm sure Nintendo's already kind of on the early planning stages of their next console, but there ain't going to be hard specs, and if there are, there's no way they're going to make it onto the internet yet. So you can look at the stuff and read this article that I'll link below and do with the information what you will. For me, I'm just looking at kind of the simple surface level, broader scope of this whole concept of maybe a Switch 2, maybe a Switch Pro, what's going on with all this. You know, part of the conversation about the Switch 2 is that it's going to be, you know, very capable and cheap 4K gaming and 4K display, which is interesting. Part of the stuff about the Switch Pro is the fact that it's a TV focused device and it's actually not something meant to be taken portable or taken on the go. And so we're suddenly reversing the concept of the Switch Lite. And I do have to say that I find that very interesting and fascinating, kind of believable, kind of not, but the Switch Lite also kind of changes how I look at that concept, so it's tough to say. I mean, when we think of the idea of a Switch Pro, A, existing, and B, being TV play only, no portable, no handheld, no nothing, the thing is, as much as I want to say that instinctively, I just don't believe that because it seems like something Nintendo wouldn't do. To be fair, I went on for about 5 or 6 months about the rumors of a Switch Mini and the rumors of it being portable only without the ability to be hooked up to a TV, and I said numerous times I didn't believe Nintendo would do that. I said, no way, even if they're making a Switch Mini, it's still going to be able to plug into a TV somehow. It'll have its own dock, it'll somehow fit into the current one, or you can just go straight HDMI into the TV, something. Nintendo won't remove the Switch ability from a Switch Mini. I believe that basically 99%, and I was wrong. Nintendo proved me wrong. Have no problem admitting it. They made a Switch Lite and you can't plug the darn thing into a TV. It's the worst mistake I think they could have made with the console, and that ruins any appeal I could ever have for this thing, but it doesn't change the fact that that's the product. That's what Nintendo made. They made a Switch that doesn't switch. So when we reverse this and go the opposite direction, and we think of Nintendo releasing a more powerful, more capable, more graphically intense version of a Nintendo Switch hardware that plays current Switch games and Switch cartridges and connects to the same Switch eShop. It's basically the same infrastructure and community of the Nintendo Switch. Yeah, I think that it's possible that if they make one that way, then maybe they would make it also something that doesn't switch. Maybe it can only be connected to a TV. And I have such weird conflicting emotions and opinions about this idea because I love the fact that the Switch is what it is. I love the fact that it switches. I love that it's portable and that it's also something I can play on my TV. It's the most capable Nintendo device ever made. It's playing incredible, great AAA current games, you know, great graphics capabilities, obviously underpowered by comparison to the other machines, but so capable in its own right. Hell, frickin' Witcher 3 Complete Edition comes out like in a week or something. So I think it's a great device, and I love the fact that it's portable, and I take advantage of that often. However, I'm also somebody who's, you know, I'm an old fuddy-duddy, I'm nostalgic, I'm an old school guy, and so sometimes I do appreciate just the simplicity of your console is your home console and your portable is your portable, and we don't need to blur the lines. And so thinking about an upgraded Switch that doesn't go portable, I have some kind of interest in that idea as well. You know, I kind of like the fact that it's like, you know what? There's no messing around with this thing. It's a Switch Pro. It connects to your TV. That's all it does. There's not all these variables that developers have to consider. It doesn't do 100 different things. It won't play games, change your tire, and toast your bread at the same time. It just plugs into your TV. You put your game in, you're playing. And it's great, and it's beautiful, and it's better looking than we've ever seen. And now there's more games available. We're playing Resident Evil 2. We're playing Red Dead Redemption. We're playing Grand Theft Auto 6, whatever it could be. And that's great. Like, it gets me excited the same way I also, on the opposite end, appreciate the fact that the current Switch is portable as well, you know? So that's the conflict that I'm talking about. Like, those things are opposite. You would think somebody would only like the fact that it's a hybrid or only like the fact that it's TV connection. And it's like, I don't know how to explain it, man. My brain and my gaming fanship and my history as a gamer for 35 years still allows me to like both concepts. And so if a Switch Pro came out and it only played on your TV and it didn't switch, like, yeah, I would definitely be curious and interested. If it did enough different and it made enough different gaming experiences possible, I'd be pretty interested. Now, to go back to the Switch 2 kind of topic and conversation for a minute here, just to really probably end this video, I'll reiterate some of what I've kind of already said here. I don't believe that we're yet at the point where Nintendo Switch 2 makes any sense. I can't imagine that it's far enough along for any sort of like halfway legitimate info to be getting out there and to be leaking onto the internet. You know, like I said, I do believe Nintendo's absolutely working on their next device. I mean, all companies are working on their next devices at all times, right? Like, we know this. That's not a secret. That's not a surprise. And so, sure, whatever is going to be the successor to the Switch, whatever is going to be Nintendo's next generation hardware machine, they're definitely working on it. They could be on the earliest of early pre-planning phases and just, drawing out the most basic concepts and kind of ideas because it's so many years away. They could be halfway through the design process and maybe they're only a year away from manufacturing and then another year beyond that before they start to advertise and confirm it. I mean, it could be anything. Or my window, my time frame could be wrong. My current prediction of maybe 2 to 3 years, maybe they do plan on releasing it in 2021. Maybe it is 5 or 6 years away still and it's not coming out till 2025. Sure, I could be wrong, but I'm only going to share with you my honest prediction and my honest feeling, which is about 2 or 3 years. I feel like 2022 or so probably makes sense, is what I would think we might see the next console, regardless of a Switch Pro or whatever. And so if that time frame, if my prediction here is anywhere close to correct, then they would probably right now be at the earliest pre-planning phases of the Nintendo Switch 2 or the next console. So this person goes to 4chan and posts all of the specs you could ever possibly want to see. It even talks about like a solid state drive and stuff, and it's like, man, I don't know. Anything is possible, I would never say I'm 100% on anything. In fact, the one time I did, it totally bit me in the ass. You guys who've been around for a while actually probably know what that is. It totally got myself into just a whole crazy conundrum of a situation. And so, yeah, I'm not going to say it's 100% impossible that any of this stuff is true, but I'm going to say it's 99% I don't really believe this currently. Not to mention a couple of other factors, one being that we don't even know if it would be a Switch 2. There's a really good chance that Nintendo's next machine after the Switch isn't going to be able to switch. It might not be a hybrid. They might be done with that idea. And maybe they go back to just making a home console again, like the rumors of the Switch Pro are saying. I think it would be, it's not crazy to think that Nintendo wants to do the hybrid thing for a while now because it's so successful, and I don't think any of us would really have any problems with that. But there's something to be said for just going back to the normal old box that's just a TV thing that plugs into your TV that's the most capable it could possibly be. The thing is, if Nintendo sticks with the hybrid idea for their next machine, while that would be cool and I'd be happy and excited for it, they are also still consistently limiting themselves to whatever is the most capable and inexpensive portable machine they can make at any given time. It doesn't matter if the next hybrid Switch is in 2025 or even 2030. Whatever's happening in 2030 when they make a Switch 3 or whatever, like the best and most affordable portable device they can make in 2030 will still not be capable enough compared to the PlayStation 6 and the Xbox 19 or whatever they're calling it at that time. So by doing hybrid, they're always going to be limiting themselves to whatever is capable at that time. So if they move on to something that's back to just being a box again, then they have the potential to kind of go for the ceiling of what's capable. They could say, sky's the limit, man. It's just a box under your TV. We can do a lot more than if we make it something that's also a hybrid. Interesting stuff to consider. Also is the fact that the Xbox Scarlet and the PlayStation 5 are now confirmed to be coming out a year from now in holiday 2020. And so there's a really good chance that Nintendo will be slightly influenced by what's happening with those guys. I brought it up so many times, and it makes sense to bring up again here. A lot of people have varying opinions on how much Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft all compete with each other. There are some people who think that Sony and Microsoft are not in competition with Nintendo, and Nintendo is not in competition with them. And there's this brick solid wall, you know, a 10-foot concrete wall between Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft. And I firmly do not believe that. I think that that is just not accurate. I think that it's possible for two things to be true at the same time. One, Nintendo carves out their own path and moves to the beat of their own drum, absolutely. But also still is paying attention to Sony and Microsoft, and they're paying attention to Nintendo, just like they're paying attention to each other. It's clear and obvious. They're all playing in the same sandbox, and that sandbox is the home console video game industry. And they're all devices that many times play the same game. There are plenty of games on the Nintendo Switch that you can also play on the PlayStation and the Xbox. They're making games that play on all these devices. Like that alone, the third-party developed multi-platform industry alone keeps all of these companies connected. Nintendo is not in their own world. They're making their own path, but this path is still on the same overall trail that is the progression of video game home console experiences. Like, that's just how it is. And so Nintendo can't completely ignore PlayStation 5 and Xbox Scarlet. Just like whenever they move on to the Switch 2 or whatever they make, Sony and Microsoft are not going to be ignoring Nintendo either. I mean, how many times has Sony copied Nintendo's innovations in the past? That only happens because they're paying attention to each other. Nintendo has only evolved into a more serious attempt at online gaming because the other guys have done it, and it's about time for them to catch up to what the other guys in the industry are doing. Showing Nintendo is paying attention to them. And so maybe the PlayStation 5 and Scarlet have some sort of influence on Nintendo's next machine. Who knows? I think it's interesting. I think it's possible. It's just like most topics I talk about. At this point, all we can do is wait and see. So these are some of my thoughts kind of here early on in the concept of a Switch Pro and even the Switch 2, you know, something that, you know, I think even a week ago, none of us thought would be a conversation. And I honestly believe that this won't be a conversation for long. I think this is going to be a one and done rumor situation for now. And yes, I'm talking about it, and I made a video about Switch 2. Oh, is it real? But that's because it's the current right here, right now thing, and it factors into this whole thing about a Switch Pro, and I find it interesting, because I love video games, I love Nintendo, Switch is my favorite console, so why wouldn't I talk about this topic? I find it fascinating. So, you know, maybe something comes of all this nonsense, or maybe nothing does. And I think that we all have to keep our emotions and our expectations in check, and remember that more than half the time, rumors like this turn into literally nothing. So even though I spent 20 minutes, you know, yelling at you guys about all this stuff and my opinions here because it's fun and interesting to do, let's be real. Nothing's probably going to happen here. I mean, there's such a good chance the Switch Pro ain't even real, and I think the Switch 2 is many years away. Or sorry, 2 or 3 years away, I should say. If I say many years, people are going to interpret that as like 5 or 6, and I don't think it's that far off. So yeah, that's what's going on here. What do you guys think about this? Switch Pro, Switch 2, all these rumors. Here we go. You got a specs list for a Switch 2. Come on, man. Like, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you believe this? Do you want this? Do you think that it's all just a bunch of hubbub and a bunch of nothing? Whatever you think, talk about it. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.